Hello there folks, welcome to another marvelous video. The fear of the unknown and what lies beyond our periphery of understanding has terrified as well as fascinated us for a long time now. The world that we know is full of such tales that have been woven into our mythology. However, over time, as we grow familiar with the old tales, some of this apprehension is removed. What if a new cosmology of beings were to be presented to us that influenced our actions without our knowledge? Beings so impossibly ancient and beyond the scope of our comprehension that witnessing even a fragment of their power leads to instant madness. This genre of storytelling, popularized by H.P. Lovecraft, has become a monster of its own and has become an intrinsic part of pop culture. Danny Boyle's 2007 film Sunshine starts off as your typical sci-fi film where a bunch of individuals are sent into space to avert humanity's doom. While the story's premise starts off similar to that of Armageddon and Interstellar, it quickly devolves into something more reminiscent of the film Event Horizon. The story follows a crew of experts in their respective fields who have been tasked with flying a spaceship all the way to the sun and detonating a nuclear bomb within the star's core to jumpstart the star again. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. What follows is their slow descent into madness as things begin to go from bad to worse as they come closer to the sun. In today's video, we'll be exploring the sun and how it's treated as a cosmic entity in the film Sunshine with regard to the effect it has on the crew of this ill-fated mission and its overarching position in the narrative of the film. We will explore how it's more than a conventional space thriller and how Sunshine delves into existential questions about humanity's place in the universe, the limits of reason, and the psychological toll of confronting something so improbably vast. Through its stunning cinematography, intense character drama, and descent into metaphysical horror, the film explores themes of sacrifice, insignificance, and the terrifying beauty of the cosmos. It also features a stellar cast of actors like Michelle Yeoh, Cillian Murphy, Chris Evans, Benedict Wong, Mark Strong, Hiroyuki Sanada, and Rose Byrne. While these actors are household names now, many of them were still waiting for their big break at the time. Their thespian chops, combined with Danny Boyle's direction and Alex Garland's writing, gave us one of the most intriguing pieces of cinema combining the cosmic horror genre with science fiction. So without any further ado, let's dive right into this film where the sun is dying and humanity's last hope lies 93 million miles away. But the closer they get, the less human they become. Let's begin. The sun as cosmic horror. The sun in Danny Boyle's sci-fi thriller Sunshine is transformed from an astronomical body that we're all familiar with into something that's vastly alien in the way it affects the entire plot. This transformation prompts the audience to reckon with the sun as an object of unfathomable force that transcends the physical realm and delves into the psychological aspects, aligning closely with the central tenets of cosmic horror. Rather than portraying the sun as a benevolent source of life, or even a neutral object, the film renders it as an entity so astronomically powerful, indifferent, and incomprehensible that it becomes horrifying. While there are no tentacled old gods here, the horror this transformation in how the sun is viewed creates echoes of the works of H.P. Lovecraft, where the terror arises not from malice, but from confronting something so immense, ancient, and alien that it obliterates the human sense of order, purpose, and sanity. Cosmic horror is founded on the idea that the universe is not only mysterious, but humans are insignificant in the grand scheme of existence. The sun in Sunshine embodies this principle. Throughout the movie, we don't see it displaying any hints of direct will, agency, or malice towards the Earth or the crew of the Icarus, and yet it's lethally destructive in more than one way. First, the crew of the ill-fated Icarus 1 and then Icarus 2 are subjected to escalating physical and psychological breakdowns, making them do things that wouldn't be expected from some of the most brilliant minds known to man. The sun drives them to their death, not because it wants to, but because its very nature guarantees devastation to anything that comes close to it. It makes us almost view it as a cosmic elemental god, not in personality, but in its scale and consequences. It explains the almost cultist fervor of Pinbacker towards it later in the film. This impersonal personal danger that the sun poses is reflected in the film's core, where the crew of Icarus II is tasked with reigniting the dying sun to save Earth. This entire mission is less of a heroic journey and more of a prolonged exposure to existential dread fueled by the giant cosmic force looming over them. Every mile that they come closer to it, the sun's effect renders the crew more prone to mistakes, breakdowns, and a simple sense of awe. Like the cosmic horrors that we're familiar with, the sun simply needs to exist, and that's enough to unravel the crew. What makes Sunshine so effective as a work of modern cosmic horror is that it doesn't rely on supernatural elements or tentacled gods, as mentioned earlier. Instead, it evokes the same dread using real science and familiar celestial objects. The sun is not an alien. It's the most familiar object in our sky, and yet the film renders it terrifying and alien. It does this not by altering its nature, but by confronting us with its reality regarding its scale, power, and implied cosmic indifference. Pinbacker's transformation and philosophy. Originally part of the first ill-fated mission to reignite the sun, Captain Pinbacker was the captain of the ironically named spaceship Icarus I. The crew had been tasked with nuking the sun with the hopes of reigniting its core and thus saving humanity from a winter doom. However, unexplained events begin to play out aboard the ship, resulting in a total loss of communication with Earth. Desperate to try again, humanity relaunches a second mission aboard the ship called Icarus II. On their way to the sun to deliver the payload, they discover the Icarus I near Mercury and board it in hopes of finding supplies and an additional bomb to drop on the sun in order to increase their mission's success rate. However, when the crew of the second mission board the ship, they witness a number of strange things, following which their ship becomes compromised as well. To the audience's horror, the culprit turns out to be the sole survivor of the first mission, Captain Pinbacker. He had murdered the Icarus I crew and sabotaged the ship, rambling like a frenzied fanatic. The only explanation for this transformation is that the captain of the Icarus I was deeply altered due to being exposed for a prolonged time to the sun and its radiation. This is not insanity born of isolation alone, but of prolonged exposure to something too vast, too bright, too eternal for the human mind to grasp. The effects of this were that it triggered a psychological and spiritual rupture within Pinbacker. He emerges not just as a madman, but a zealot, an apostle of the sun, if one may call him that, obsessed with its majesty and interpreting its overwhelming presence as not just a celestial object, but as a divine entity. Through his words, Pinbacker reveals a twisted philosophy that he had come to accept. He suggests that the sun has some sort of sentience and that it wills humanity's extinction, and going against this divine edict was heretical. For the former captain, humanity's only choice is to accept the fate dictated to it by this cosmic entity instead of fighting against the eventual entropy. His actions, from the murders to the sabotage, don't really stem from personal malice, as he believes that he's carrying out the divine will of his god. In Lovecraftian terms, Pinbacker is a touched figure, not unlike cultists in the Call of Cthulhu or the protagonist of The Shadow Out of Time, whose contact with a cosmic force has rewired his perception of reality. His belief that the sun is a divine force demanding sacrifice is not a delusion in the usual sense, it's a rational response to an irrational, incomprehensible reality. Pinbacker's physical transformation serves as a visual metaphor for what he has become, a creature who dwells in the periphery of the human and the inhuman. He has become what fans of the cosmic horror genre might call the other. His scorched body is reflective of his warped mind. Overall, Pinbacker's transformation and trajectory into madness is not merely psychological, it is deeply metaphysical, philosophical, and spiritual, aligning him with archetypes of Lovecraftian cult leaders who confront cosmic truth and collapse under its weight. Cosmic horror and human insignificance. We've already touched on this topic a bit earlier in the video, but let's elaborate on it further, as it's a core tenet of this film. Like some of the best works in the cosmic horror genre, the film doesn't rely on jump scares or monsters alone. Instead, it draws dread from the insignificance of mankind in the face of incomprehensible forces, which in this case is the sun. Although the sun is initially understood from a scientific viewpoint, it takes on a mystical and cosmic role as a fire god, for whom humanity is extremely insignificant. The fact that it's not evil, but incites malevolent activities by its mere neutral and inescapably enormous presence is terrifying to witness. The crew of the Icarus is not battling a cosmic evil. They're trying to nudge an ancient force back into humanity's understanding of order. In this effort, they are not heroes. They are insignificant, barely a footnote in the sun's cosmic existence. The mission is suicidal from the get-go, as it's reflective of a desperate attempt to assert humanity's will in a universe that dwarfs it. Every single character on both the Icarus missions grapples with the psychological toll of their mission. They're asked to play gods, to relight the source of all life on Earth, knowing that their failure would seal humanity's fate. This burden is overwhelming, not just in scope, but in the realization that their efforts may be pointless. As the story plays out, we see how it begins to affect the crew members, starting with Searle, the ship's psychiatrist. Searle is slowly drawn into the sun's orbit both physically and mentally, as if he has been put under a spell by something incomprehensible. His obsession with the solar observation room becomes a religious ritual and is not something isolated, as we find the crew of the previous ship turned to ashes in the very same room of their ship. This shows that even a psychiatrist, who's supposed to be an expert when it comes to the mind, has his psyche fractured by the sun. He seeks to comprehend something too vast for the human mind, echoing Lovecraftian themes of madness born from revelation. Following this, we have Trey, the mission's navigator, who experiences a breakdown after a critical mistake. His descent into depression is not framed as simple guilt, but as an existential paralysis that stems from the fear that any human action is ultimately futile in a universe this vast and indifferent. These characters didn't just face failure out of any fault of their own. They fell because they faced the collapse of meaning itself. Their mission, which is noble and grand by human standards, was rendered absurdly insignificant and futile in the grander scheme of the cosmos. Like most characters in a cosmic horror setting, they're exposed to the truth too vast to bear or comprehend, and they crumble under its weight. Pinbacker versus Paimon, Event Horizon comparison. Both Pinbacker and the entity often likened to Paimon in Event Horizon from 1997 represent twisted, godlike forces of madness and destruction. There are, however, some key differences regarding their origin and nature. One is a man broken by exposure to what he considers to be the divine. The other is an invisible, malevolent force whose origins are later revealed to be much more ancient in nature. In the comic Event Horizon Dark Descent, which serves as the prequel to the film, we learn that Paimon is a powerful demonic entity that has its roots in demonology and Western occult practices. There are also several deleted scenes of this hellscape from the original film that further confirm this theory. Yet both serve the same cinematic function. They become the monstrous embodiment of what happens when humanity confronts something far greater and darker than itself. Despite their distinctly different origin, Paimon and Pinbacker fulfill a similar narrative role. Firstly, they are both agents of corruption as they infect and corrupt their respective environments. Pinbacker turns the Icarus One from a scientific vessel to a frozen tomb floating in space, and nearly does the same to Icarus II, while Paimon corrupts the ship and the crew in the movie by manifesting their deepest fears, guilt, and sins. Both films equate insanity with spiritual and cosmic factors. Pinbacker and Paimon both represent the esoteric force that's beyond their comprehension, to which the humans are exposed. Mutilated bodies and shattered minds are the most visible signs of their influence. The key difference is that the mutilation in Sunshine is manifested in Pinbacker, while Paimon influences the crew to do the same to themselves. In both cases, mutilation is used to suggest that exposure to these forces requires a bodily price. The one true difference between the two is the fact that where Pinbacker is an agent of the sun, a corrupt prophet, Paimon is under no one's influence but his own. He is part of the hellscape, or the infernal dimension from where it hails, and the torment he inflicts is his own doing. There's also a difference in the intent of their action. In Pinbacker's case, he believes that by carrying out his atrocities, he is fulfilling a divine will. Thus, his actions are not driven by evil, but by some sort of twisted philosophical philosophical corruption. In Paimon's case, his actions are deliberately malevolent, and he means to cause harm to all that he comes across. There's no sense of corruption, as Paimon is already a fallen entity who embodies evil. Therefore, how can you corrupt something that's already corrupt by nature? Ultimately, Pinbacker and Paimon represent two branches of horror that share a common root: the collapse of the human mind when faced with the incomprehensible. If you want to know more about Paimon, check out our channel for where we've posted an exclusive video dedicated to this character. Psychological destabilization through scale and light in the film's cinematography. One of the clearest manifestations of cosmic horror in Sunshine is how the sun distorts the minds of the crew. Searle, the ship's psychologist, becomes fascinated, then obsessed with the sun's intensity. He spends increasing amounts of time on the observation deck, adjusting filters to let in more light, as if trying to commune with something divine. "It's beautiful," he says, as if in a trance. His obsession is not with destruction, but with the confrontation of something far beyond human comprehension. This parallels Lovecraft's characters, many of whom are driven to madness not by terror in the traditional sense, but by the sheer awe of what they encounter. Just as one might go mad staring into the void of deep space, or an elder god, in Sunshine, characters begin to disintegrate psychologically when faced with the sun's enormity. The film's cinematography mirrors this psychological breakdown. Visual distortions, lens flares, and overexposed imagery proliferate as the crew draws nearer. Reality begins to blur as time and space lose cohesion, especially in sequences involving Pinbacker, who appears more as a hallucination than a man. Where traditional horror uses darkness to incite fear, Sunshine uses light to burn away any semblance of sanity. The sun is so bright that it destroys not only bodies, but boundaries between the real and the metaphysical. The film constantly plays with visual saturation, often showing the sun as a searing white or gold force that consumes everything in the frame. This aesthetic choice turns light itself into a vector of horror, turning the ordinary into the terrifying. This reconstruction of the sun recalls the Lovecraftian tradition of the sublime, which is beauty so vast and overwhelming that it becomes terrifying. The sun is breathtaking and beautiful, but that beauty is intertwined with annihilation. Just as the ancient ones in Lovecraft's stories are awe-inspiring and terrifying all at once, so too is the sun, divine in scale but devoid of mercy or reason. Marvelous verdict. Ultimately, in Sunshine, the sun is both literal and metaphorical, a celestial body and a cosmic god. It's not malevolent, but its very existence destabilizes those who draw near. Through its scale, heat, and cosmic indifference, the sun becomes a source of psychological horror, an entity so immense and uncaring that it not only dissolves the human body, but also the psyche. The film's descent into hallucinatory imagery, obsession, and madness mirrors the structure of cosmic horror narratives, where confronting the infinite drives characters to the brink. Ultimately, Sunshine is a film about what it means to look too closely at something beyond human scale. Like Lovecraft's protagonists, the crew of Icarus 2 reaches for the stars and finds that some lights are too bright to survive. We hope that you enjoyed this video as much as we had fun making it for you. Thank you for sticking with us right to the very end. If you want more of where this came from, be sure to check out the rest of our channel. We post daily videos featuring all of your favorite anime, TV shows, and movies. For now, though, it's time for us to say goodbye. We hope to see you soon in the next one. Until then, stay safe and stay marvelous. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.